Hello everybody, my name is Thibodeaux, and I suffered from eating disorders for approximately 10 years. And the reason why I'm making this video is because of my own experiences from talking with other people, doing a literature review. I actually wanted to write a book about the topic, and in so doing, conducting all the research and going through my interview process, it really led me to discover some very disturbing trends in terms of therapeutic practices, concepts. I found a lot of logical fallacies, what I feel are very negative practices within the therapeutic community, a lot of stereotypes about eating disorders that I feel are very incorrect. And so this video is basically a presentation of my findings. It is intended to help anybody with an eating disorder, friends, family, who might not be familiar with it and who want to clarify or to find out about the disorders. I really just want to clarify what I found because it is so drastically different from what is normally portrayed in the literature or the media or even other YouTube videos. So the first topic that I want to address is the stereotype for eating disorders. The stereotype that exists is basically that you have to be an adolescent white female who is middle class or upper class. My research found that it cuts across all class, genders, stereotypes, gay, lesbian, straight. Anybody at any time can develop an eating disorder. The reason why the stereotype exists is in part because of the way that it is portrayed by the therapists themselves. They have done demographical studies by going to treatment centers or treatment facilities. The problem with doing that is that a lot of the times when you go to a treatment center, they're the same types of individuals who are there. They tend to be the adolescent white female who is brought in by the parents who are very concerned or who can afford the care. And so that really skews the demographics when you tend to look at gender, age, those things. My research showed that there's cases all the way from 3 years old. I had one source that said that she had treated a case of as young as 3 and as old as 69. So there's a very wide age range, and males, even though it's not portrayed as much, they get eating disorders just as much. There's reasons to believe that not as many males are coming forward because there's a stigma that it's a female disease. So there's many reasons why the stereotype is not correct. The next thing is that there is a conception that those with eating disorders don't want intimacy for one reason or another. Usually that idea is connected to some kind of abuse, whether it be sexual abuse or just any kind of trauma. That either they are starving themselves so that they look unattractive and thereby thwart advances, or just the opposite, where they eat too much and achieve the same result. My research found that intimacy was the one thing that those with eating disorders wanted the most. The problem was that they just didn't feel that they were worthy of it. So that is another huge misconception within the therapeutic community. We do very much want intimacy, and it's one of the most painful things for us because we want it so much, and yet we're very much afraid to reach out. I refer to that as the Cinderella complex. The idea is that basically at the stroke of midnight you think everything that is good in your life or every good relationship is just going to disappear. Maybe you've done certain things, or you think that they're going to discover some unknown fact about you, and that at the minute that happens, everything that you have is just going to be gone. So sometimes it's easier to just avoid relationships even though you want the intimacy because you're so afraid of getting hurt. And there's other reasons why people shy away from intimacy even though they want it. A lot of times self-injury in terms of cutting that goes along with eating disorders. People get embarrassed about the scars and that kind of thing, or the behavior itself. A lot of times, especially bulimics, they don't want to let people know that they're actually throwing up or doing that. They think it's disgusting and they're very afraid to tell their significant other. But main concept, we do want intimacy very much. Don't let anyone tell you that we don't. We're just like anybody else. Also, and related to that idea is the concept of sexual abuse. That idea, the idea that those with eating disorders pretty much all have been abused, or there's a high rate of abuse within the eating disordered population, that is in pretty much every literature source and media source that I found on eating disorders. It far exceeds any other stereotype that I found in terms of causation for eating disorders. But what I found was basically therapists have absolutely no statistical evidence that can prove that there is a correlation between the two, between abuse and disordered eating. This is not to say that sexual abuse and trauma is not a stressor that can contribute to the behavior. It is simply to say that to assume that that correlation exists, as a therapist to say, oh, well, they have an eating disorder, therefore they probably were sexually abused, they simply can't prove it. There is no reason to make that leap. I found statistics for studies that went anywhere from 20% for a correlation all the way to 90%. So there's very high discrepancies there. They essentially can't prove what they're saying in terms of the sexual abuse. Again, that is not to say that it is not a significant stressor. I do believe that it is. It's simply to say that statistically they cannot prove that there is a correlation between the two. The next topic is control. This, again, is one of the biggest things that therapists like to promote, that it's all about a control issue. Usually with anorexia, it is presented as you want control too much. Usually your environment is just totally chaotic, and so you're trying to take control of that one aspect of your life, your eating. If you are a bulimic or an overeater, they present you as having no control, or being on the fence in terms of bulimia. I believe that this is, again, completely inaccurate. I think that eating disorders are all essentially the same form of illness. They just manifest in particular ways based on your own eating habit history, your personal belief system, whether or not you have aversion to throwing up. Obviously if that seems far too disgusting for you, you're going to shy away from bulimia. Your own belief systems come into play in terms of how you diet, how you relate to food. So I see them as essentially being the same illness. So to say that anorexia is being more controlled than another, I really don't see that. I think anorexics can feel just as out of control as a bulimic, and a bulimic can feel as if they are as controlled in what they are doing, in terms of planning binges, as an anorexic. So I don't see the correlation that many therapists have made. Secondly, I see eating disorders as being very much a defensive thing. Therapists have tried to promote this as your environment is very chaotic, and therefore you're trying to control that one aspect. But I really do see it as something that is very defensive. One woman that I actually interviewed for this project described it in a very good way that I really related to. She said that you can't control the chaos that is around you, but you can essentially make your own new environment, your own little bubble, and you can control that. But it is not about manipulating the environment that is already there. You're just trying to kind of separate yourself from the chaos that is going on, or the stress that you have. So again, that makes it defensive. You're creating this little bubble around yourself, or using it as a coping mechanism in that way. Analogy that I use a lot when I'm talking about this is that the therapeutic view is that if you have blueprints for a building, the therapist would have it that you're walking through this construction site and you don't like the way things are, so you actively take the hammer and nails and you change things all around, which again makes it offensive. In my view, it's more like you're walking through the construction site and that wall starts to fall in on you. And the only thing that you can do as someone with an eating disorder is to put both hands up and keep that wall from falling in on you. You don't want to necessarily be standing there holding it up, but that's all you can do to keep everything from crumbling in around you. So that is my view in terms of control. I do not believe it is a control issue. I believe from my own experience that it is a stress response that is very defensive.